Hi YouTube, welcome to another edition of Horror Hounds, and for this video I'm going to go through all of the Blu-rays and DVDs that I picked up in the month of January. And we start with some extreme horror actually, the new release from Unearthed Films. This is a Serbian film. Now, my parents watch this channel and it would be terribly indecorous to go through the details of this movie while they might be watching this having their breakfast or something. But if you're into extreme cinema, me not wanting to talk about this should be advocation enough to check it out. But be warned, this is as dark and as extreme as it gets. In terms of violence and gore, I have seen worse, but thematically it is pretty horrific. I think it's a good film. There's definitely a good film in this, but you have to sit through some of the most messed up stuff you'll ever come across that a lot of people just will not like. So yeah, proceed with caution on this one. It is nice to finally get it for the collection. Nice to get an uncut version of the film because it's not the easiest film to get. So thank you Unearthed Films for that. So that is a Serbian film. Next up we have The Alligator People. This is just like a fun 1950s movie. This guy, I think he's some kind of scientist guy, and he does something that turns him into a half man, half alligator monster, and he's trying to reverse the experiment. It's pretty good fun. Like I say, it's a fun 1950s movie, and the alligator people themselves look pretty cool. Okay, next up from Warner Brothers, we have The Apparition. I've just got this in today. Don't really know much about this. It just looks like one of these kind of creepy supernatural type movies. So I'll be giving this one a watch soon. Okay, next up we have Big Legend. This was a really good movie. This is a Bigfoot movie. A guy and his girlfriend, they go on a camping trip and they're attacked by Bigfoot. His girlfriend slash fiance is killed. And then like after a year of therapy and that, this guy returns to the woods to kind of find answers and sort of with a bit of revenge in mind as well. And he sort of teams up with another sort of hunter out in the woods trying to track down this Bigfoot creature. Like I say, I thought this film was really, really good. It's a little bit slow. You don't see much of the Bigfoot, but it kind of worked in this film's favour. And I really like the relationship between the main guy and the hunter who they sort of befriend each other when they meet in the woods. So yeah, really good Bigfoot film. I definitely recommend this one if you are into such movies. Okay, next up is Blackwater. Blackwater, killer crocodile movie. I've heard really good things about this one. I hear lots of good reviews, but never got around to checking it out. And of course, Blackwater Abyss has now been released. I think that's related to this film, so I wanted to finally get this and check it out. And I'm sure I'll go on and check out Blackwater Abyss. But yeah, really looking forward to this movie. It definitely looks right up my street. Okay, next up from Full Moon, we have Blood Dolls. This was a pretty good, pretty fun movie. Kind of take your brain out and enjoy it. It's Killer Dolls, which is Full Moon's bread and butter. So if you're familiar with like the Puppet Master series and things like that, you kind of know what to expect. But yeah, very silly, but still a fun movie. And the Blood Dolls, the Killer Dolls themselves are pretty good. Okay, next up is Bloodline. So I did review this on my channel a few weeks ago. This was a really good film. Very violent, very dark, with a surprisingly effective performance from Sean William Scott. But yeah, really good film. If you want to know a bit more about this, like I say, you can check out my review. But yeah, I was very impressed with Bloodline. Okay, next up is Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. Now, I never got round to watching this movie. By all accounts, I heard it was terrible. But my friend, who I see every weekend, he is a huge fan of this film. So, you know, I watch so many horror films, and every weekend pretty much he says how good Blair Witch 2 is. So I finally picked it up and gave it a watch. And I have to say, I thought it was okay. It wasn't the disaster that I often read that it is. I really like the kind of late 90s, early 2000s nostalgia. I think that really helped. And I think that if I watched this at the time, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it. But I think because of kind of nostalgia more than anything else, I did get some enjoyment from this film. So it was good to finally check out the second Blair Witch. Okay, next up, is The Call. So this had a good premise. These kids, they like terrorise this woman that lives in this town, and she dies, she kills herself, but it turns out she has like supernatural powers, and she invites them back to her house, and her husband kind of says that they're in the will, and they can have all this money, but they have to go to this room and last 1 minute on a phone call with the deceased woman. So they all think it's like just bogus, but it turns out that she is kind of doing weird stuff to them, kind of over the phone, and the execution of this movie was not great, to be honest. I couldn't really get into it. It wasn't that good. Like I said, it sounds cool when you kind of look at the plot, but no, I was a bit disappointed with this one. It's described as a bit of an 80s throwback as well, but I didn't kind of get that at all from the movie. So, yeah, a bit of a disappointment that one was, unfortunately. Right, next up from 88 Films is The Rage, Carrie 2. Now, I remember this coming out, and I dismissed it straight away. I didn't think it was a very necessary sequel, and I didn't think that they'd really do the first film justice, and this kind of just completely went out of my mind, and I think it was the same for a lot of other people. It's not a film that you hear much about. And I remember 88 Films brought it out on Blu-ray, and I had a read of some of the reviews, but most of the reviews are very favourable and say that they did actually make a really good film, and it's a very good follow-up to the original Carrie. So I've kind of gone from not caring about this movie at all to really wanting to check it out now. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. And this came out in 1999, and I'm told it has a very sort of late 90s, early 2000s vibe, which I'm really digging at the moment. I'm enjoying that kind of late 90s nostalgia. So yeah, I'm looking forward to checking this one out and seeing what it's like. Okay, next up from Network is a charming little British TV movie from the 70s, Casting the Runes. So this is, I think it's loosely based on the same story as Night of the Demon. This woman this time, she sort of disses this guy's book. He's wrote a book on witchcraft or something, and he then puts a curse on her where she's going to like die after so many days, and she's trying to investigate further and try and stop it. Like I say, I enjoyed this. It was a very charming little movie, but I think it would be way too slow and tame for people now. But if you're a fan of the old 1970s television shows, this was produced by like Yorkshire Television. If you're a fan of those, you may enjoy this one. I thought it was pretty good. Okay, from Vinegar Syndrome, we have Cementerio del Terror, or Cemetery of Terror. So this is another one of these like Mexican Spanish slasher movies that Vinegar Syndrome have picked up, and I have to say they've really struck gold with these Mexican movies. I got Grave Robbers a while ago, and that was excellent, and this one was really good too. These teenagers, they invoke this demon guy, and he proceeds to kill them off in and around this cemetery. It's a really good film, very entertaining with some fantastic makeup and practical effects. So yeah, like I say, Vinegar Syndrome have really scored well with these Mexican slashers. I'm really enjoying them. Right, next up from Warner Brothers, we have The Curse of Frankenstein. This is a recent release from them. Great to see this finally get a nice Blu-ray release. It's an excellent movie, one of Hammer's finest films. And this has got some quite nice special features on as well, like documentaries about the film and about Hammer Studios. So yeah, classic movie and a very nice release from Warner Brothers. Okay, next up from Warner Brothers, one that I'm very late to the party on, and that is The Curse of Larona. So one of the movies from the Conjuring universe. And I enjoyed this film. I didn't think it was anything special. It was kind of sort of just by the book, scary, supernatural film, but I had fun watching it. I thought it was a suitably well-made, kind of scary film. So that one was cool. Okay, next up from Kino Lorber, we have Curse of the Faceless Man. This was pretty cool. Another one of these fun 1950s movies. They excavate this sort of stone figure of this guy from like Mayan times or Egyptian times or something, and he comes alive and starts killing people. And there's one of the female people in it, female people. This woman in it, he sort of takes a liking to her because she looks like the old queen from his time. Very rudimental description of this film, I apologise, but like I say, it was a suitably enjoyable 1950s movie. I did enjoy it. Okay, next up from Vinegar Syndrome, we have Dimensiones Ocultas, or Don't Panic to give it its English title. This is another one of these Mexican slasher movies. So I've got all three of them now that they've released so far. Out of the three, this is the one that I kind of enjoyed the least, but I still had fun watching this. It's a strange mix of like kind of Nightmare on Elm Street dream style stuff and then sort of slasher movie. So yeah, the story's a bit all over the place, but one thing about these Mexican films is the gore and the makeup looks absolutely fantastic. I can't remember who does it now in the movies, but it really is good. The effects that they use in these films, really impressive stuff. Okay, next up is Dustwalker. So this is an Australian film, I think, about these UFOs that come down to Earth and they take over the people in this small Australian town and like turn them into zombies. The plot of this is really good, and there are moments in this that are really good. When the movie first started, I was really into it and thought it was great. It does get a bit dull though. I've heard a few reviews saying it is a dull film, and it does seem to drag. I thought I was coming towards the end of the movie, and I looked, and I was about 35 minutes in. So yeah, it really does kind of drag in places, and yeah, overall I think they really could have benefited with trimming it down a little bit and just condensing the story, because again there is some good elements in this, but yeah, it just got a bit boring, I think, along the way. Okay, next up from Vinegar Syndrome, we have the Forgotten Charlie Volume 2 box set. So I haven't had a chance to check this out yet, but the Volume 1 was really good. I really enjoyed these movies, and so I'm hoping this one will be good as well. So I'll just show you the movies that you get in here. Okay, so you get My Dear Killer, you get The French Sex Murders, and you get The Girl in Room 2A. So yeah, like I say, hopefully if it's anything like the first box set, these will hopefully be pretty good. I'm not the biggest fan of Giallo movies, but they did manage to find three that were entertaining enough in the first box set, so I'll be looking forward to digging into this one and giving these movies a watch. Right, next up we have Jersey Shore Massacre. So this one looks to be tapping into that like MTV Jersey Shore culture where everyone's all beautiful and whatnot, but in this movie there's a killer going around killing them all off, so that should be pretty fun seeing these pretty boys and girls killed off. So yeah, it looks silly but fun. Right, next up from Vinegar Syndrome we have Luther the Geek. This is one that I've never been that interested in seeing, but a while back someone showed it with this really nice slipcase with the shiny writing. I always say it's amazing what a nice slipcase can do for a movie. And I watched it, and I have to say I was very pleasantly surprised with it. I really enjoyed this movie. Luther the Geek, he goes, he gets incarcerated when he's young for biting the head off chickens. Apparently that's what a geek is in the olden days. And then he's released, goes back into society, only to start terrorising people, and he starts terrorising his family in this rural farmhouse. But yeah, it was a very pleasant surprise, Luther the Geek. One that I've put off for years, but after finally watching it, I really enjoyed it. So it was nice to enjoy it so much. Okay, next up from Kino Lorber, we have The Man Who Haunted Himself. This looks like a really interesting movie. Roger Moore as a guy, I think he dies or he nearly dies, but survives. But then he has like a doppelganger going round, affecting his life and causing all kind of problems. So it'll be interesting to see Roger Moore in this kind of supernatural role. So yeah, I'm looking forward to checking this one out. Okay, next up we have Mayhem. This one was crazy. It took me a while to get into this one, but in the end, I really enjoyed it. It's about these people working in this big corporate building, and this virus breaks out, and it causes people to just act on their impulse in like a really violent way. So they're just like fighting with each other, killing each other, all that kind of thing. And there's this one guy, he has just been like fired by the company in a really unscrupulous way. He's really upset about it, and he kind of uses this time to go through the building and get to the executives that fired him and treated him like crap. Because whilst you are under the influence of this virus, apparently anything you do cannot be used in a court of law. So him and this woman, who the company's been awful to her as well, they make their way through the building to kill off the executives that have treated everyone so badly. It's an absolutely wild film. It's crazy, but I did enjoy it. It reminded me of the Belko Experiment. If you like Belko Experiment, you'll like this. So definitely check it out. Okay, next up from Network, we have the Nightcomers. Don't know much about this. I just came across it recently. It's sort of like a bit of a gloomy British horror movie, if I've looked at it right. It stars Marlon Brando just before he did The Godfather and came back big in Hollywood. So I'm thinking this will be quite an interesting movie. So I'll get around to watching that soon. Okay, next up from Kino Lorber is Night Kill. It sounds really cool, but it's something very dreary film. Very low on horror as well. This would be at home on like CBS drama, that kind of thing. It's absolutely that kind of movie of this woman. I think her husband gets killed by someone and she starts getting terrorised by people, but it's very drama driven. I didn't particularly care for that much. Okay, next up from Anchor Bay, we have No One Lives. This was a pretty good film, a bit different. These sort of these backwood rednecks, they kidnap this man and his wife, but there's a bit of a twist to it in terms of this guy and what he can do and who he is. I don't really want to say too much about it, but it's a really good kind of action horror movie with a twist. Yeah, really good film. I like that one. Okay, next up from Kino Lorber is The Oblong Box. Never seen this one before, but it's Vincent Price and Christopher Lee, which is enough for me to check it out. So looking forward to doing so. Okay, next up we have Peninsula. So the third film in the Train to Busan series. And this movie was good. Not as good as Train to Busan, but that's a incredibly high bar to set, but I thought it was decent enough. It's got some really bad CGI in it though, which I felt cheapened the movie a little bit. But in terms of the zombie action, which is probably why we're watching these movies, I can't fault it. It was good in that aspect. So yeah, not too bad. Then from Synapse, we have Popcorn. This is another one I've wanted to watch for quite a while, and I enjoyed this one. Some like film students, they put on an all-night horror-thon at this closed-down cinema, but this like old filmmaker who was thought to be dead, he is killing people behind the scenes. So it's some good stuff. It's an interesting movie, and I also really like the movies that they show as part of the horror-thon in the movie. So that was good as well. So yeah, I enjoyed Popcorn. It was alright. Okay, next up from Vinegar Syndrome, we have Rest in Pieces. This one was a disappointment, unfortunately. I really kind of couldn't get into this one. I was just sort of watching it thinking, like, what's the point? Nothing really, didn't do anything, didn't really mean anything. This woman, she gets this house when her grandma dies, and there's all these weird old people that live there that are killing people off. But no, I couldn't get into this one, unfortunately. Okay, next up from Cheesy Flicks, we have The Savage Bees. So one of these When Nature Attacks movies from the 70s. Picked this up because I haven't seen one of these films for a while, so I thought I'd get one. This movie was good, I enjoyed it, but it's a terrible transfer. One of the worst looking DVDs I've ever seen. It is just ripped from a VHS, and it's not even a good VHS. It jumps about everywhere, and there's a snowflake effects all over the place. So yeah, terrible transfer, but enjoyable movie. Okay, next up from Severin, we have She Killed in Ecstasy. Don't know much about this. I just grabbed it because it was came with the window box slipcase, which is very hard to get now. But this is a Jess Franco movie, so I'm expecting it'll be good, or it will be unwatchable. It'll be terrible. I do hear good reviews about it. By a lot of accounts, this is one of Jess Franco's better movies. So hopefully it will have a bit of merit when I watch it. Okay, next up from Vinegar Syndrome, we have Silent Madness. This is one of their more recent releases, and it's a 3D release, so it comes with 3D glasses as well. But this was a fun slasher movie. This inmate at this asylum, he gets released by mistake, which is just hilarious. And he goes around killing people off, and one of the people from the asylum, one of the just about the only sort of conscientious employee, she's trying to track him down. So yeah, pretty fun slasher film. I like that one. Okay, next up from 88 Films is Swamp Thing. I did have this on DVD, but I gave it to John from Project Ellsworth because he couldn't find a copy, so I thought I'd upgrade to the 88 Films Blu-ray. But Swamp Thing's awesome. I've always enjoyed this film. It's a lot of fun. So I look forward to checking that out again at some point. Next up from Trauma, we have The Taint, which is absolutely insane. Incredible movie. But my gosh, it's violent even for Trauma standards. It's disgusting even for Trauma standards. It's silly even for Trauma standards. But I loved every minute of it. Such a fun film. So over the top and gory and disgusting. And yeah, don't watch this one while eating, I would say, because just about every bodily fluid you can think of just goes spraying everywhere. But it's so cool. It's such a fun film. Very like low budget indie type movie. Right, next up is The Tombs. This is one I thought would be pretty terrible, but I actually really enjoyed this. This is about a scare attraction that's set up in London, and it's based around a horror film called The Tombs. And the killer from the movie is actually in the scare attraction, killing people off for real. So yeah, not an amazing movie, but one that I did enjoy, so it was a nice surprise, that one. Okay, next up from Kino Lorber is Trilogy of Terror. I hear a lot of people talking about this one when they talk about anthology films, but I've never seen it myself. So picked it up and have now watched it and enjoyed it. It's a pretty cool movie. It's a TV movie, and Karen Black, she stars in all three of these segments, which are pretty good. The third one was my favourite, with the killer Zulu doll thing stalking her in the house. And the last scene, I've got to admit, really creeped me out. It had a very creepy ending. So credit to them for that. Okay, next up we have The Visit. So I've been intrigued about this film for a while. Finally checked it out. Got to say, it scared the crap out of me. I was absolutely terrified by this film. I couldn't even sleep the night I watched it. I don't mind saying. Really, really creepy movie. Gets under your skin, keeps you wondering, keeps you guessing. And then when you do kind of realise what's going on, it gets even scarier. So yeah, very, very frightening film. Really well done. I liked it. Okay, next up from Synapse, we have Watch Me When I Kill. Don't know much about this one. It's another giallo movie. Kind of gets good reviews, so we'll see. I'm always a bit funny with giallos as to whether they can hold my interest or not, but it looks like a cool movie. So I'll give that one a watch soon. And then next up we have Xenophobia. Don't know much about this one. I think it might be an anthology film, sort of based around alien abduction and kind of people telling their stories on that. Something like that, but it looked pretty cool. Looked alright. And then last up for this update from Shudder, we have Yummy, which I've seen a few people picking this one up, and I have to say I really enjoyed this one. This was a very good film. It's a zombie outbreak in like a cosmetic, like plastic surgery kind of centre in Russia, I think. And yeah, a zombie outbreak breaks out, and a load of people have to kind of get out and get to safety. But yeah, really enjoyable film. It's got a quirky mix of humour and horror. I didn't know it would be so sort of humorous. I thought it was a serious film, but it did have quite a bit of humour. The effects in it were great. The zombies looked great, and yeah, I had a lot of fun watching this one. So another good film there from Shudder. So that's everything that I've got this month, guys. As always, feel free to let me know what you think about the movies that I got this month. Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.